Introduction to Strange Tale Author's Diary. Single female lead or no female lead, mind not reading, infinite flow wisdom battle plus brainstorming strange tales plus word game plus Lezi humanistic literature core of power system. Text synthesis: a piece of stone and a piece of skin, combined with the character, broken, can break through thousands of things. Scene display. Encounter zombies, just carry rice with you and scatter it. The combination of corpse and rice creates a large mosaic, instantly transforming the enemy into invisibility. Asterisk: the dungeon involves strange talk about zoo rules, prison mirror, logical person. Should we start talking about catching monsters in dungeons again? The author of the strange story, Yu Liang, sat in front of the computer with drowsy eyes, stretched lazily, and skillfully wrote the leave request. Pulling crotch strip: my nephew has given birth, please take 1 day off smiley face. Chapter 1. Welcome to Changhong Zoo. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Your writing is very lively, but that's all from the past. Then this book. I don't know what exactly happened to you, why is it like this now? You're writing suspense and horror, not youth literature. I need bizarre and convoluted stories, not lyrical. I'm sorry, that could be very hurtful. Even if I use my initial pen name to publish. Does it have any commercial value? Please take it seriously, Mr. Yu Liang. 502. It's here. Yu Liang opened the rusty iron door and choked on the dust that had been shaken off. The room looked like it had not been inhabited for a long time, with dust and spider webs intertwined and blocking the entire living room. The newly entered appearance was indeed not very impressive. However, he is still very satisfied because this single apartment is spacious and affordable. Although this is a suburban area, far from the bustling neighborhood, and although buses only run once a day in the morning and once in the evening, it would be great for Yu Liang, who is about to be driven out of Haicheng, to have a place to take him in. Probably being mercilessly bombarded by landlords is probably a necessary path for every writer. No, I'm not a writer, I'm just a writer. Yu Liang thought to himself mockingly, carrying a large and small bag into the room, and the door behind him creaked and slowly closed. It's really not bad, the monthly rent is only 700. He looked around the entire apartment, which was a simple 1-bedroom, 1 bathroom, and 1 living room. Not only did it retain the entire set of furniture, but it also had natural gas supplied by pipelines and water and electricity subsidized by policies. The reason for all of this was just that this room had died before. It doesn't matter. After tidying up until evening, Yu Liang finally made this place look suitable for living, and the more he cleaned up, the more satisfied he became with this single apartment. As an apartment, both the lighting conditions and sound insulation met the standards of residential design, which gave him a sense of achievement in finding a cheap one. As night fell, Yu Liang casually dealt with 2 people and sat at a computer desk, starting tonight's creation. It is said that shoes should be placed upside down before going to bed, because it can prevent ghosts from finding your bed. But my wife has never believed in the strange and chaotic system. In the middle of the night, she was awakened by her husband's gesture of getting up to use the restroom. Looking at her husband's shaky figure disappearing into the darkness, her wife couldn't help but think of this urban legend, so she magically turned a shoe in front of the bed. After a moment, the husband who had finished using the restroom returned, but he was just slowly spinning around in front of the bed, scratching his head in a strange way. Where is my bed? Yu Liang scrutinized the outline he had just written and read it again. He didn't feel that kind of careful thinking and extreme fear. On the contrary, he felt that he had written a cold joke, which was not funny. The conversation in the editorial department during the day echoed in his mind. At that time, Yu Liang didn't think too much, and his only feeling was that he had lost one income. Now, he deeply realized that this also meant that he only had the ability to produce garbage at present. Inspiration, inspiration. Yu Liang let out a long sigh as he stood up from his seat and looked around the entire bedroom. After a moment of examination, his gaze remained on the bed. This room doesn't look like there has been a murder, it's still such a heinous case. The young crazy husband peeled off his wife's skin and slept under the bed with her skin for 3 days and nights. After waking up, he suddenly collapsed and ultimately committed suicide. Compared to him, the summary of this murder case is even more bizarre than the outline of the ghost story he just wrote, let alone some details of this case. It is said that the skin of the person was completely peeled off, and it is said that this skin disappeared after the incident, making it difficult for the police to find its whereabouts. What exactly did that guy think at that time? Yu Liang's heart was filled with such a question. As a writer, he preferred to use conspiracy theory to explain everything unusual, rather than simply thinking it was crazy. However, the nature of this case is quite unique, and he cannot find any relevant clues online, at most only fragments of urban legends. Yu Liang bent down, turned on the flashlight on his phone, and looked under the bed. In the afternoon, he had already cleaned it once, so the bed was very clean. After a moment of contemplation, he crawled under the bed and lay flat on the spot where his mad husband had once been. Even with the lights on in the bedroom, it was still dark under the bed. Yu Liang turned his head and looked out at the light from under the bed. Although it was a light that could be touched with just one hand, he felt a bit distant, as if he was constantly falling into the abyss of darkness. If there are other people in this bedroom, this perspective should only be able to see their feet. Firstly, a pair of feet were walking back and forth, seemingly unaware of me, but suddenly they bent down and looked under the bed. Then, the classic horror movie ghost face filled the screen. But there won't be anyone else in this bedroom. Because the bed was the body of her wife, her skin was completely peeled off, revealing only the bright red flesh that oozed blood. The incision is neat and the technique is skilled. It seems that I am a doctor or a butcher who is proficient in the human body. No, the income of a doctor or butcher is not low, and they won't live in such a small apartment with their wife. Did you have specialized training in peeling? Can a normal person practice this kind of thing? In short, now this skin is lying next to me, and as I look at her face with a black hole, I can't help but joke, didn't you always find your face too fat before? Now, your whole face is light and you don't have to worry about losing face when you go back to your hometown for the spring festival. Blood accumulated in the depression on the bed, merging through the gaps in the bamboo mat under the bedboard, slowly dripping onto my face. I hurriedly protected the skin bag next to me from getting any blood. Wait, there seems to be characters on the inside of the wooden strip under the bedboard. As his eyes drifted, Yu Liang noticed something, so he turned on the flashlight of his phone and carefully recognized the handwriting. Perhaps due to the incorrect posture, these characters were written in a sloppy manner, with varying sizes. Yu Liang added punctuation marks to them in his mind to make them readable. I am trapped here. The doors. The windows are all locked and cannot be opened at all, the ones that can't be knocked open are all sealed. Unlock. Key. I need a key. The key is the moon and the moon. But metal has it, and the moon is in the sky. How could I possibly get the moon? The moon is in the sky, leaving, escaping, leaving, with so many words, there is always a way. Don't rush, breaking. Stone, skin. Stone, UU reading www.uukangshu.net available. Skin. Skin. Yu Liang touched his chin, and these words seemed to have inherent logic, not chaos. The crazy husband was trapped in the apartment and wanted to go out, so he found many ways, many words. However, why does key require metal and the moon? Is it just because key is composed of item and month? Shi and pi formed the word p and helped him break free from the constraints and escape from the apartment. It seems a bit far-fetched, but to some extent, it can be understood. Similar to the content seen in some psychiatric interview novels, the patient's speech is not chaotic, but rather logical, and can even easily bring normal people in. Just the human skin really disappeared, right? Yu Liang suddenly felt a chill, and then he felt something was wrong. If the handwriting on it was left by a crazy husband, the police should have dealt with this bed, right? Even if the police don't care, the landlord will have to change the bed. If they don't change the bed, they will at least erase these inexplicable words, right? Or is the character actually written by the landlord? It's a bit outrageous. Yu Liang shook his head and dispelled some unrealistic thoughts. Wait, there's something else. He noticed a folded black paper between the seams of the bedboard, so he instinctively reached out and took it off. That is a flyer, all black, with the words, "Welcome to Changhong Zoo," written in artistic font. The background is a blurred image of animals such as lions, giraffes, and elephants. Changhong Zoo. Yu Liang was taken aback for a moment. He had also lived in Haicheng for a few years. Is there a zoo called Changhong? Chapter 2. Monkeys Who Cannot Be Alone. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Welcome to the world of strange talk. This kind of sound sounded in the pure white world, and then the flat world began to become real. Countless simple line frames form an anime-like scene, followed by different color blocks appearing, and adding billions of details, a complete world appears in front of Yu Liang. Here is. He looked at the spacious hall in front of him and then looked at his standing posture, feeling a bit stunned for a moment. I was just lying under the bed, but when I came to my senses, I was already standing here, so I wasn't knocked out and threw myself here. It was more like a flash, appearing here from home in an instant. Strange world. Yu Liang recalled the warning sound that still echoed in his ears and couldn't help but silently become alert. Both the name and the way of appearance have supernatural meanings in it. Naturally, he will not think this is a stupid reality show like the common supporting role. Mobile phone. My phone is also missing. He touched his body and found this fact, then his gaze swept over the entire hall. The decoration here was slightly shabby, but very neat, and the decoration style also leaned towards a low and warm tone, but there was no one around. Three sides are enclosed walls with no way out, and in front of Yu Liang is the ticket gate. Four passage gates block the way side by side. His gaze passes through the ticket gate and falls slightly further away, which is the exit of the hall, emitting a faint light. Yu Liang walked towards the ticket gate. With only 3 or 5 steps left from the gate, the red light on the gate turned green, and the railing was lifted from there, revealing the rear passage. After a brief hesitation, Yu Liang walked straight through the gate, and the sound came from the gate. Didi, identity verification, may you spend a wonderful life at Changhong Zoo. A wonderful life, he repeated in a low voice, his heart furrowing. The words were accompanied by a completely flat electronic tone, as if a hand that had reached the bone marrow lightly brushed the surface of his skin, causing a layer of goosebumps. Welcome to Changhong Zoo. As he entered the vast expanse of whiteness, a warning sound came from Yu Liang's ear again. He looked around and found himself outside. The layout inside the zoo is still relaxed and warm, with cartoon signs everywhere to guide tourists. The trees on both sides of the road are dense, and the main and small roads crisscross. Yu Liang also saw a small lake and a large area of neatly trimmed lawn not far away. He is still willing to visit and explore just by looking at the scenes in the park. However, the zoo was very spacious, but there were no signs of humans or animals. It was a bit quiet and oppressive, and there was even a buzzing sound in Yu Liang's ears, which only appeared when it was extremely quiet. In the past, he only felt this way when he was wearing earplugs. Can it be so quiet outdoors? Is this still the zoo? Yu Liang looked at the nearby signs and the vast semi-open buildings, lost in thought. Grassland Animal Area. He read out the words on the sign. He couldn't see any animals there, but the unique stench of large animals had already been transmitted in the air. Sir, do you need my help? Suddenly, a polite inquiry from a man came from the side. Upon hearing the sound, Yu Liang turned his head and saw an employee wearing a light green uniform in front of him. His face wore the official standard fake smile, his skin was white with a hint of red, and the corners of his mouth were raised high, revealing two round and protruding apple muscles. His eyes were large and focused, and this face reminded Yu Liang of the enlarged version of the doll Billy. "Sir, this should be your first time visiting our Changhong Zoo. Do you need me to be your tour guide?" The doll employee politely asked, maintaining a distance of 1 meter from Yu Liang. "Tour guide." Yu Liang silently recited the word, but instead of explicitly refusing, he asked directly, "Can you give me a map of the zoo? It would be even better if you could introduce the situation here, thank you." Emotionally speaking, he actually resists walking with such a strange-looking employee, but if we understand the current situation as some kind of live-action game, then the guy who appeared at the first time he entered the zoo and called himself a tour guide, probably to guide newcomers. As for the map, there will be an entrance to each exhibition area. The doll staff paused for a moment. As for the situation here, as you can see, we are the largest zoo in the city, known for its unique artificial landscape, rich animal resources, and colorful themed activities. "Theme activities," repeated Yu Liang, feeling puzzled as his entry into the park was also related to the theme activities. The doll employee kept smiling and naturally brought up the following topic. "Yes, for example, now we have a night exhibition activity where employees select lucky tourists. As long as you can answer a question about animals, you can get a night exhibition ticket. Ask." Yu Liang also felt that this activity appeared very abrupt, but it did not hinder his participation. If this zoo is seen as a large escape game in a secret room, the night exhibition is obviously an additional exploration space, and the choice of whether to go or not is up to him, but it may not necessarily be available after missing the ticket. "Okay." The doll employee walked towards the grassland animal exhibition area not far away. There is a monkey and several crocodiles on a small island. Now, assuming that these crocodiles have the same way of thinking and all want to eat the monkey, but if the crocodile eats the monkey, it will turn into a monkey. So what will happen on this island? Yu Liang was taken aback for a moment. He thought it would be a question about animal knowledge, but he didn't expect it to be a logical question. His brain instinctively started to think about this question. Firstly, this kind of logical question is definitely not too realistic. There should be no situation where crocodiles eat monkeys separately and then turn into monkeys together, otherwise this question would be meaningless. It is obvious that the key to this problem lies in the consistent way crocodiles think. They are both rational and greedy, so there are probably 3 situations that will arise. If a crocodile is irrational, it will eat the monkey and then turn into a monkey, until the last crocodile turns into a monkey, and the result is that there is no crocodile left. Secondly, crocodiles have a certain level of rationality, so they will stop when there are only 2 crocodiles left. At this point, whoever eats the monkey first will become a monkey and be eaten, which means there will be 2 crocodiles and 1 monkey left. The last scenario is that crocodiles have absolute rationality. Based on the second scenario, no matter how many crocodiles there were originally, once the number reaches an even number, they will restrain their desire to eat monkeys. This is the answer obtained from a mathematical logic perspective, and Yu Liang started with game theory. The answer remains the same, so he refocused his attention on the doll employee in front of him and quickly replied, "There will always be a monkey, and the number of crocodiles will be even. 0, 2, or more. Congratulations, you answered correctly." The employee's lips raised high as he handed out the ticket with a smile. "Sir, this is your reward." "Thank you." Yu Liang took the ticket. The paper was very rough, with a rose-red base and small bumps all over it. The text and pattern were black and white, with some animals lying or standing on it. However, the quality of the oil print was not good, so the faces of the animals were all black as a whole. From 20.00 to 6.00 the next day, the night exhibition at Changhong Zoo is open for you. Will it continue until 6 o'clock the next day? This time period doesn't seem like an exhibition attended by people from the mortal world. Subconsciously pondering, Yu Liang shifted his gaze to the side and realized that he had arrived at the interior of the grassland animal exhibition area. Beside him was a science popularization plaque with a cartoon pattern of a python and a text introduction of a round young person. Rock pythons are a greedy and non-toxic snake, with a thick and long body that can reach up to 7 meters in length. They have a large mouth and can swallow many animals, even adults. Greed. At the same time, the doll employee also stopped and turned to face Yu Liang, habitually maintaining a distance of 1 meter before throwing another question. You're right, there are only 2 crocodiles left. So now, if one of the crocodiles must eat the monkey, what should we do? Yu Liang's thoughts were interrupted by this question, but it was not difficult, so he answered without hesitation, hide in the dark, wait for an opportunity to secretly eat the monkey. This is not difficult to understand. As long as the other crocodile does not know that it has eaten or transformed into a monkey, it naturally dares not easily take action against the monkey. Wait. Yu Liang seemed to realize something, and he suddenly lifted his head to look around. The shadow of the building covered his head, and the figures of him and the doll staff were drowned out by Yu reading www.yuukangshu.net. This place was still unfamiliar, but more remote than just now. The doll's face still maintained a high smile, and the shadow of the apple muscle fell on the corner of his mouth, appearing very eerie. You. He pushed a few steps and stared at the doll-faced employee in disbelief. Just now, his spare time was paying attention to the dolls and being wary of any unusual movements, but after all, he was thinking about the problems of the doll employees and did not notice the hidden killing intent in the remote environment. Congratulations, you got it right. The employee smiled as he tore off the skin of his doll, which was as clean as molting. This action is also like pressing a switch, causing his jawbone to deform along with his mouth, gradually growing wider and wider. The junction protrudes outward, and the upward-facing nostrils are located in the front part of the protruding mouth. His head is no different from that of a crocodile. The big mouth twitched slightly, sharp teeth flickered with sharpness, and the employees still maintained their human form, but their body suddenly stood tall, more than 2 meters high, with muscular knots, far stronger than the average person. This transformation process naturally had no stopping effect, so at this point, Yu Liang had already turned around and ran towards the spacious road, completely ignoring the changing employees behind him. His gaze quickly swayed, gathering everything in front of him to the bottom of his eyes. Crocodile, where is there another crocodile? We must find another crocodile, now the only one who can save his monkey is the second crocodile. In the presence of both crocodiles, they dare not speak first. At the same time, a blue semi-transparent panel appeared in Yu Liang's field of vision. Triggered branch rumor. Monkey cannot be alone, note. Make sure there is always someone around you, otherwise something bad may happen. Chapter 3. Promoting Chinese Character Culture. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Yes, you don't need to find the crocodile, you can find anyone. The notes on the blue screen reminded Yu Liang, and his heart immediately reacted. As long as it is in a place with people, the crocodile behind it cannot kill itself, otherwise it may be known by another crocodile, and the crocodile that turns into a monkey will naturally become food for real crocodiles. With the blessing of reason, crocodiles will not make choices that are not worth the loss. Between life and death, Yu Liang's speed at his feet was far faster than usual. He tilted his head slightly, paying attention behind him, alert to the approaching crocodiles from behind. The force accompanied the howling of the fishy wind, and a sturdy hand grabbed Yu Liang's shoulder from behind. It suddenly exerted a downward force, pressing Yu Liang down to the ground. He lay on the ground, and what caught the eye was a large mouth dripping with saliva. Done. Despair arose in his heart, but Yu Liang did not wait for the end of his life. The crocodile employee let go of his hand, his eyes slightly narrowed, and some cunning squeezed out of the corner of his eyes. He seemed to feel something and hurriedly left here. Have you left? Yu Liang could feel his heart beating wildly, lingering palpitations swirling in his mind, and all his strength dissipated. If the crocodile appeared again now, he would definitely not have the energy to run wild again. But no more, the crocodile really left. As if stepping into the safety line, Yu Liang felt the sharp feeling of the crisis behind him suddenly dissipate, and then he felt relieved and relaxed. Why did it leave? In this remote place, crocodiles have priority in absolute dominance, and can easily kill themselves, but they have never taken action. And obviously, the crocodile knew something. It appeared at this time and in this position, using the excuse of a tour guide, and the unknown situation should not have had a chance to escape. Because there are only 2 crocodiles left now. No, as he said, as long as you secretly eat the monkey, it's just the best opportunity. Yu Liang pondered for a moment without any results, and could only attribute it to the game between the 2 crocodiles. However, this does not mean that the crocodile will let him go. He still needs to avoid being alone. He turned back to look in the direction he had just escaped, and now there was nothing but calm waves. However, the virtual blue screen in front of him still displayed the words, "Monkey cannot be alone." Didi. The sharp whistle of the bus came from the corner of Zhu Avenue. The bus quickly arrived at Yu Liang's side, and a young man's head peeked out from the passenger seat. He glanced at him and said, "New tourists. Get on the bus first, we'll go all the way. Don't rush to ask any questions, we'll let you know later." Yu Liang nodded and got into the car through the open front door. Now that he had triggered the monkey's strange talk, he had no extra choice. He walked into the carriage and quickly scanned the people on board. There were not many people, but they separated in groups of 3 or 2. He could sense from the atmosphere that there were many factions here. The faces of the driver and co-pilot are somewhat similar, indicating that they are brothers. There are 3 women sitting in the middle of the carriage, wearing simple makeup and whispering with laughter. Then there was a middle-aged man walking alone in work clothes, his hand resting on the armrest, with a ground-length mountain knife at hand. He wore a flashlight stained with brown blood on his waist, and beside him was a huge travel bag that was half a person tall, packed to the brim, and in the last row of the car, there was a man and a woman sitting at both ends, obviously not acquainted. From their expressions, it seems that the 2 people in the back row have been in a state of tension, probably both newcomers. It's almost there. It's good to find 3 new tourists in the morning, one of the 3 girls said. It's already time for dinner, let's just do it this time. That's okay. The driver stopped the bus on the side of the road upon hearing this. He turned around and his gaze fell on the man walking alone. How do these newcomers get separated? 1 on each side. The lone man did not answer his question and directly asked the 3 newcomers behind him, "What is your surname?" "What's your surname?" The man in the back seat hesitated for a moment and instinctively replied, "Xiao, my name is Xiao Zhais." "Xiao? What Xiao?" The solitary man looked up, his hair a bit messy, his beard shaky, but his eyes were sharp like swords, pointing straight at Xiao Zhais. Xiao Zhais replied, "It's the zodiac sign of the Chinese zodiac." "Well, okay." The solitary man nodded heavily with a meaningful expression in his eyes. "What are you doing outside? You 2 can talk about it, and I'll tell you about the situation here later." "I'm from the financial industry," Xiao Zhais answered first. The sharp temperament of a lone man made him uncomfortable, but he didn't dare to have any objections, just spoke honestly. "My name is Huang Yijia, a college student," replied the girl on the other side, who was a bit shy and spoke softly. "Yu Liang, he can be considered a writer." Seeing the other 2 doing the same, Yu Liang also spoke truthfully and did not act as a leading figure. "Writer. Then you should know quite a few characters, right?" The solitary man gave him a deep glance and turned to his 2 brothers and 3 women, saying, "All right, I'll take care of these newcomers. Do, Ali, do you have any objections? There is no doubt in his words. He has no companions and seems to have the least advantage, but he carries the most fierce aura. Dawu is the driver, and Ali is the first of the three women. Xiao Wu, who was on the passenger seat, suddenly changed his expression and said urgently, "Give it all to you. Old Du, aren't you the one who hates bringing new people the most? You used to." Okay. However, Dawu responded without hesitation, "That's it for today. You can get off now." Seeing this, Xiao Wu could only darken his face, but he remained silent. Yu Liang slightly attacked the gods and gave a deep glance at the solitary man, Old Du. It sounds like Old Du made an unusual decision to bring in new people because of the surname, Xiao, and his own identity as a writer. Is there anything special about Xiao and having more literacy? Huang. Ijia, right. This little sister should follow us. The woman smiled coquettishly as she walked forward and kindly grabbed Huang Yijia's hand. Our place is a gathering place for female tourists, so you should come with us and help each other. Huang Yijia glanced at Lao Du and instinctively felt that following the three older sisters would be better, so she made a decision. Okay, I'll be with the sisters. So the four of them got off the car first. Yu Liang noticed that they were heading towards the nearby grassland animal exhibition area. Old Du in the front seat picked up his travel bag and rushed to the two people, saying, "Let's get off first." Old Du also walked towards the grassland animal area, but his pace was much slower, and he seemed to be introducing the situation on the way. "My surname is Du, just call me Lao Du," he said. "This is one of the bizarre worlds, Changhong Zoo." Strange world. What is that? Xiao Zhuai's asked, still feeling a bit confused. Changhong Zoo. Is this the script for Escape from the Chamber of Secrets? How do we get out? I don't have the heart to play with this right now. Oh, that's not wrong to think so, but this secret room is a bit big and can't escape. Old Du smiled, and there was no warmth in his smile. No key, this zoo doesn't have a key. Before Xiao Zhuai's and the others could react, he continued, "I'll make a long story short. Don't interrupt me from now on." Old Du's gaze made Xiao Zhuai's suppress his doubts. Here, we follow the iron rules and written rules of all the bizarre worlds. Each item has two basic things: name and texture. With these things, we can combine some items collected in the zoo. For example, Old Du pondered as he stood up and took out a huge travel bag from behind, taking out a few things, 2 flints, some homemade flint, and an unknown bug. Look, now I'm raising a flame. He used this flint and flame to raise a small flame, and then grabbed the dead bug and put it in. I can't name this bug, but its texture is worm, so if it matches the fire, it will become a candle. After speaking, a torch-shaped object appeared in Old Du's hand, with its upper end poured with red wax oil, like a candle. This magical change immediately surprised Xiao Zhuai's. What is synthesized is not a candle, but this kind of torch. Although Old Du had synthesized it before, he still had doubts, I don't know why. On the other hand, Yu Liang's heart was stirred, as if he could understand, but at the same time, he also developed a strange feeling. The unburned torches are collectively referred to as, and the torches used for holding are candles, while those placed on the ground are liao. However, this kind of verbal internal logic is not easily understood by ordinary people. Is the existence of this bizarre world meant to promote Chinese character culture? Chapter 4. Prisoners in the Mouth. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Old Du, what kind of magic are you doing? Xiao Zhuai's couldn't accept it. A ball of fire combined with a bug turned into a torch, and he still felt that Old Du was doing magic. No, Old Du shook his head. I suggest you accept the setting early, otherwise it will be difficult to survive in this eerie world. Live, not escape. Even old Du, who carries this kind of strong aura, just hopes to live longer. Yu Yang keenly noticed the details in old Du's words, and his heart sank halfway. Is there no way to escape? Xiao Zhai's asked in confusion. Oh, that's okay. Old Du suddenly sneered, pointing to the sky. The boundaries are all locked, and unlocking requires a key. The metal next to the character is easy to find. Where is the moon? Oh, the moon is in the sky. And this sentence also opened up Yu Liang's memory, and the handwriting under the bedroom bed board said the same. Sure enough, those who possess this way of thinking and leave behind those words are players who have experienced this strange world. Xiao Zhai's face turned ashen, and he still found it difficult to accept such things in the short term. Old Du continued, you, like me, have the ability to view a certain item. You may not have noticed it before, but now it should be possible. He held a flint in his left hand and a torch in his right hand. Here, take a look and see what the difference is, he said through this statement. It was like an enlightenment, and Yu Liang also felt the so-called viewing function. When he turned his gaze to the flint and torch, words appeared next to the two items in his field of vision. Flint introduction. A tool used for ignition. Torch name. Candle texture. Fire genus. The flint has no name or texture. Yu Liang looked at old Du. Yes, that's the second point I want to make. Lao Du nodded. A dead object that cannot be synthesized in a short period of time after human use will take a month to refresh its state. He continued, in addition to synthesizing such items, this kind of synthesis can also synthesize verb characters, such as this one. As Lao Du raised his hand, a golden, broken character appeared in his palm. A piece of stone and a piece of skin can be synthesized, isn't it quite magical? Well, it must be animal skin, not melon skin, Baozi skin, and so on. There are still many animals in this zoo, but it is important to be proficient in skinning, leaving too much meat to be judged as skin. This type of verb character can create a change that ignores the laws of nature after selecting a target within a certain range, which is about 5 steps away. If broken, it is destruction. Old Du's words were cold, and he chose to use the word broken as an example, which was also obvious. He is an experienced hand, and the resources he possesses are beyond the imagination of Yu Liang and the others. If he is willing, he can easily kill the two with any help, which is also a warning to them not to have any ulterior motives. Of course, some words can be both verbs and nouns, and options may also appear when combined. Lao Du added, in addition to the common rules of writing in the world of strange talk, each branch world has its own unique rules, such as the rules of this zoo. Try to remember and follow the rules as much as possible. I will take you to take a look later. Each branch world. Yu Liang repeated his words, looking at old Du in confusion. Old Du was taken aback for a moment, then smiled and said, that's right, I have already experienced a branch world, this is the second one. I see. Yu Liang understood, and then he saw the words, task completed. You have completed the beginner task. Understanding the world, and the bonus reward has been distributed to the item list. Below his field of vision appeared a row of items, totaling 10 squares, one of which displayed a chess pattern. Yu Liang's eyes remained calm, and he naturally inserted his hands into his pockets. Triggered main storyline. Changhong Zoo, note. A series of strange things have happened in this zoo. You can either escape or find it and then flee. At this moment, old Du seemed to notice something and his eyes lit up slightly. Oh, the task of bringing in new people has been completed. It seems that both of you have accepted this rule. After speaking, a golden character and a long sword appeared in his hand out of thin air. The long sword was pinned to his waist, and the character disappeared from his arm in an instant. Yu Liang's movements were so fast that he couldn't see what the character was. Alright, you should also receive your newbie rewards, old Du continued, they should be in your item list. You can take them out and take a look, so I can give you some advice. Xiao Zhai's nodded as he could see that he really had such an item list. With a thought, a small knife that had been sharpened appeared in his palm. Is it a metal knife? It's not bad. The texture is metal, and many words can be combined next to the word dot. Of course, I don't recommend using it for synthesis, as it would be better to use it as a regular knife. Controlled knives are not sold in this zoo, commented Lao Du, then looked at Yu Liang. Since then, this guy has been standing in his pocket. Let me see. Is this how it's extracted? Yu Liang took his hand out of his pocket, palm up, and a wooden chess piece appeared in response. What's the use of this? The chess piece is only the size of a thumb and is engraved with the word horse on it. Chess piece's name. Ma texture. Wood genus. Wooden chess pieces can be combined with characters next to wooden characters. As for horse. I didn't expect it at the moment, said Old Du casually, glancing at it. Yu Liang nodded and put this chess piece back into the inventory, along with the other chess pieces in his pocket. He knew that Old Du would inquire about the newbie rewards for the two of them, so he inserted his pockets in advance, extracted the rewards into his pocket, and then placed a chess piece in the item list before retrieving it in front of Old Du. The reason for doing this is also very simple, he is guarding against Lao Du. The operation space of a whole set of chess pieces is very large, and Yu Liang does not want to display everything in front of Lao Du. Fortunately, these chess pieces were not big and did not catch Old Du's attention when they were extracted into his pocket. As a newcomer, he only had 10 compartments in the item list, so when receiving newbie rewards, the items were directly distributed to the item list, while Old Du received them directly. This indicates that his item list is already full, and with that huge travel bag obviously, this guy has a terrifying background. Alright, come with me and see if you can find a bargain. Old Du completed the task and thought of other things. Those women just went to the grassland area ahead, right? Wait, what do you want to do to them? Xiao Zhai's nodded first, suddenly feeling something was wrong and his face changed. Old Du chuckled and said, me. Those 3 women are not good things. The newcomers who are with you probably have already died. I was just passing by to see what they really want to do. They want to kill Huang Yijiao. They're not talking about helping each other. Xiao Zhai's was suddenly surprised, as he was also constrained by the moral and legal concepts of human society. Perhaps, so I'm going to take a look now. Old Du remained noncommittal and walked ahead with his mountain knife at his waist, his voice calm and free. He had already seen such things as they were. I'm not interested in your newbie rewards, so not everyone else. There are still some good things in the newbie rewards. It seemed like there was a bad premonition, and Xiao Zhai's face became solemn. He closely followed Old Du, while the 3 of them also had their own thoughts and walked quickly. The bus stopped near the grassland animal area, so the 3 of them quickly arrived at the park. They walked through the signs in the exhibition area and quickly entered the viewing area. The internal viewing area is very large, with a completely biomimetic grassland as the main body. The animals are separated by reinforced glass, while tourists walk on the glass bridge above to admire the lives of the animals in a top-down posture. And different animal exhibition areas also use a method of changing scenery, where carnivores and herbivores cannot face each other and can only smell a little air, which can also maintain the vitality of carnivores. However, to Yu Liang's surprise, there were no protective measures installed on these interconnected glass piers. If tourists accidentally fall into the territory of carnivores, it may endanger their lives. Is the protection for tourists even inferior to that of herbivores? Yu Liang frowned slightly, and then he noticed 3 women standing above the glass pier in the northwest, looking at the animal area under the bridge and whispering something. It was said to be in a low voice, but the conversation grew louder and louder, passing through Yu Liang's ears along the wind. Sure enough, we still have to rely on pythons. We failed with hippopotamuses before. Otherwise, the hippopotamus mouth is quite big, but it doesn't swallow anything. It breaks the human body when chewed. How can an incomplete person form a character? Fortunately, she is not tall or fat, only less than 1.6 meters. The snake has been hungry for so many days, but it is still a bit difficult to swallow. The three of them are currently located at a high altitude, so they can see what is happening under the glass pier. In the sparse grass, a python 4 or 5 meters long collapsed weakly. Originally, its body was still slender, but now it looks like a volcanic stone sausages with dark green stripes. "Let's kill together, take the words and leave," the woman in charge ordered. Then the woman next to her took out a set of hooks and ropes, hung them on the pier, and slid down with a fire axe. The axe struck at the position of the snake's head, and with 3 or 2 strokes, the snake's head was cut to a pulp. The python seemed to want to struggle, but it was powerless as it had just swallowed someone. After a brief struggle, it completely stopped moving. On its corpse, a golden character slowly floated out. "Prisoner." The woman quickly inserted the characters into her body, then looked around at the restless pythons, pulling the hook and quickly returning to the pier. The person in his mouth is a prisoner, and there is actually this method. Old Do murmured as he put down his mountain knife, his eyes quite moved, but in the end he murmured to give up. They have an extra character, it's not easy to deal with. Yu Liang's face remained unchanged as he stood by, but his heart was greatly impacted. Watching his own kind being devoured by a python at close range, and then chopped off with an axe along with the python, the cold sensation swept through him like a cold day, causing him to feel physically uncomfortable. Sure enough, in this distorted and bizarre world, people are also a resource. After all, there are not a few Chinese characters with human characteristics. Note. Take a look at the writer's words. Chapter 5. Strange Rules. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the exhibition area of grassland animals, everyone stands on a glass bridge, and below is a nearby animal living area. The foul smell of animals mixed with the smell of food and feces rotting upwards, even with high-power exhaust fans, this smell cannot dissipate for a long time. After a brief moment of surprise and confusion, Xiao Zhai's trembled all over, perhaps due to fear, but in the form of anger. "Ah, Old Do," the woman led by Ali turned her head and saw Old Do and the brand new mountain knife in his hand. With a thought in her heart, her eyes flickered as the three of them stood in the shape of arrows, with their sharp edges facing Old Do. She smiled and said, "I just synthesized a new character, and the effect is pretty good. It can keep people in place for a whole 3 hours." Ali's performance remained normal, but Yu Liang still felt her bluff. The role of characters is very important intelligence, but Ali didn't hesitate to reveal it. The reason was naturally that she wanted to try to deter Old Do and not really want to have a conflict. "So powerful, I'll just take a quick look." "You guys are busy," Old Do chuckled and patted Xiao Zhai's in front of him with the blade of his mountain opener. "Let's go." Both sides coincidentally ignored Xiao Zhai's anger, not even paying attention to him. For each other, they should be more worried about the other's surprise attack. Xiao Zhai's clenched his fist, but he was not without reason. Whether it was the mountain opener in Old Do's hand or the sharpness of the arrows on a woman's crossbow, he instinctively trembled. He had already vaguely understood the hidden rules of this zoo. The law of the jungle, an undisguised law of the jungle. Except for him, it seems that no one is willing to speak for Huang Yijia, who was just buried in the snake's belly. As Lao Du changed his tone, he squinted his eyes and looked at the three women, saying, "But if you take action against the person next to me, it's like taking action against me. Of course, we understand that as tourists, we have a common enemy and we need to live in harmony." Ali took Old Do's warning and quickly left with the two people beside her from the other side of the bridge. Old Du let out a deep voice in his throat as he watched the three women disappear before saying in a deep voice, "This place is different from the outside. It's best for you to change your mindset as soon as possible. I don't expect you to do a lot for me now, but at least don't cause trouble for me." After speaking, he looked at the two people as if waiting for a response. "I know now." Xiao Zhai's felt the pressure in old Du's words, and he was not an iron-headed child either. He just didn't adapt in a short period of time. "I understand, we will listen to you." Yu Liang also expressed his opinion, asking, "But what can we do to help you?" "Yes, there is." Old Du nodded, his words without any concealment of the meaning of exploitation. "I am a rough person. Although I have been here for a long time than you, my recognition of characters still cannot match yours, especially you who write articles." He squinted his eyes at Yu Liang and said, "You know the rules of synthesis. As a player, the more you understand Chinese characters, the more advantageous you have. Composite characters can be noun characters or verb characters, and nouns can become objects, but they often find substitutes. Compared to them, verb characters are more rare and powerful, and can even kill invisibly. Just." Old Dutton paused. The synthesis of verb characters requires players' understanding, and all characters are locked. The password is the synthesis path of that character, roughly guessing what the raw materials of that character are. If you get someone else's character but cannot guess the synthesis path, then it's useless. Yu Liang seemed to understand something, but he didn't ask much. From the current perspective, old Du does not make fun of killing people, and he also has a need for the two newcomers. This is a good signal, at least it can help them pass the novice period safely. This zoo is very eerie. It's safer to follow old Du until we understand the situation. The confrontation just now shows that every veteran has a weapon at their disposal and is skilled in life and death combat. As a monkey that cannot be alone, he naturally cannot leave the team alone. On the display board outside, there are the zoo's rules, which include both implicit textual rules and explicit rules. Old Du walked ahead. "You'd better abide by the rules honestly." Garden rules. Why can they still kill people so recklessly? Xiao Zhai's followed behind old Du and asked, although he still did not agree with some of old Du's actions, it was no longer the key. Garden regulations are not laws, they are just some tourist guidelines that you will know later. Old Du chuckled, with a usual smirk on his face. There are only a few people like them who play with human lives in experiments. Of course, don't think about how kind they can be. Most people are just too lazy to do things that don't have enough benefits. Xiao Zhai's replied, his eyes full of conviction. In just half an hour, his mentality underwent a significant transformation, and then he couldn't help but look at Yu Liang on the side. This guy is a newcomer like himself, but he accepted this kind of thing even earlier, right? Upon careful consideration, it seems that Yu Liang has not yet expressed any thoughts, just like a transparent person. At this moment, Yu Liang read more from old Du's words. Players like them are not the root cause of danger. What is even more terrifying is the zoo itself. Just like the crocodile employee I just met, he inexplicably gained a strange story. Hiss. The low roar of carnivorous animals came from a corner of the exhibition hall. The three of them walked out of the Grassland Animal Museum, and old Du stood in front of the huge map of the zoo, recognizing the direction. At the same time, he pointed to the text notice board next to him. This is the main rule of the park. Write it down, don't think too much, don't violate it. Notice for visitors to Changhong Zoo 1. Each ticket is limited to one person entering the park once, and there is no ticket return or exchange service. The admission ticket for this park is a pass, allowing visitors to visit all exhibition halls in the park, but the following items require a small fee. Catering, accommodation, amusement projects, animal performances, night exhibitions, etc. 2. Please do not feed animals with food that has not appeared before in this park. Throwing stones, hard objects, plastic bags, and other items into the animal exhibition area is strictly prohibited. If there is a feeding need, please purchase animal-specific red rations at the management office. This park adheres to the principle of equal treatment, and only red animal-specific rations are available, which can be used to feed any animal. 3. When tourists take photos of animals, it is prohibited to use flashing lights to prevent other tourists from being frightened and experiencing unexpected situations. 4. Our park employees are diligent in their duties and devoted to their work. They generally do not initiate conversations with tourists without reason, and will never communicate with tourists outdoors. If there are any, please ignore and leave the relevant area quickly. 5. There are no night exhibitions in this park. The opening hours of the park are from 8:00 to 17:00. After the park is closed, tourists who stay in the park are requested to go to the tourist center to apply for accommodation. For your safety, please do not leave the tourist center after 22:00 at night. 6. The animal management system in this park is perfect, and there is no possibility of animals escaping. If you find any animals you have recently seen in the exhibition hall on the road, please go to the tourist center immediately to apply for accommodation. Attention, it is not advisable to visit the park today. 7. Each animal exhibition area has relevant animal signs. If you find any differences between the animals in the exhibition area and the signs, please call the management staff to inform them of the situation. The staff will take you to the management office to handle this matter. This tourist notice. Why is it so strange? Xiao's eyes stared blankly at the notice board, looking back to find the answer from Old Du. The first one said that night exhibitions are a paid item, but later he said there is no night exhibition, and Xiao's eyes seemed to have something to say, but Old Du interrupted him. Don't ask too much. Just take note of the content and follow it. There is a management office inside each exhibition hall, and the staff of the management office can seek help from tourists. Good. Xiao Zhai's reluctantly agreed, his eyes flashing with fear. Yu Yang furrowed his brow slightly. He had already prepared himself for the terror of this zoo, but these rules still made him feel uneasy. He wrote lightly, but the lines were eerie, and the chill was like spring rain, moistening everything silently. He put his hand into his pocket and touched the rough night exhibition ticket, feeling puzzled in his heart. If it's just to scare tourists, this tourist notice doesn't make much sense. What are they doing for? Do night exhibitions really exist? Why did that crocodile give itself the ticket? Is it difficult for another crocodile to be in the night exhibition? Chapter 6. Usage of small soldiers. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Yu Liang's gaze remained in a corner of his field of vision, where there was a list of strange stories that only he could see. Main line. Changhong Zoo, branch line. Monkeys cannot be alone. According to the remarks of the main storyline, the root of the eerie nature of this zoo is it, and the only thing these recruited tourists can do is to escape, or find it, and then escape. This kind of remark has a hint of cleverness, but from Lao Du's mouth, it can also be inferred that normal means cannot escape except by taking off the moon synthesis key. Therefore, the answer is very obvious. Only by exploring and analyzing the existence and origin of it, can other ways of escape be more easily found. In short, we need to have a deeper understanding of this place. Yu Liang made up his mind and walked over to Old Du, silently remembering the huge map of the zoo in front of him. In the center of Changhong Zoo, there is a swan lake with an island in the center of the lake. The exhibition halls are arranged around Swan Lake, and in addition, there are scattered small lakes, all of which are labeled as XX Pool on the map. Tourist Service Center, Ahong Supermarket, Children's Park. Yu Liang noted the locations of these key locations and then shifted his gaze to the bottom right corner of the map. That is the Grassland Animal Exhibition Hall where they are currently located. There is a second ticket gate about 2 inches to the right of the exhibition hall. There are a total of 4 similar ticket gates, located on the map, north, south, west, and east. So, is it possible that there are more than just the 3 newcomers? Yu Liang recalled the actual journey from Ticket Gate 2 to the Grassland Animal Museum, calculated the total area of the zoo, and licked his lips to suppress his surprise. This zoo is so big, almost equivalent to a small town. Seeing old Du still squinting his eyes as he planned his route on the map, Yu Liang's gaze drifted towards the flowers, plants, and trees on the roadside, while caressing the chess pieces in his pocket. Fortunately, his newcomer task reward is a complete set of chess pieces, and they are not simply seen as chess pieces, but as individual Chinese characters. Red. Shui 1, Shi 2, Xiang 2, Ma 2, Cannon 2, Car 2, Soldier 5. Black. Generals 1, 2, Elephants 2, Horses 2, Cannons 2, Chariots 2, and Soldiers 5. There were a total of 30.2 chess pieces, which appeared to be many, but when Yu Liang completely reviewed them in his mind, he still shook his head slowly. It is obvious that relying solely on the word-symbol synthesis rules mentioned by Lao Du is useless for most chess pieces. For example, for overly complex characters like Shui and Jiang, there is simply no way to find a synthesis method worth trying. After much thought, only the chess pieces horse, elephant, chariot, and pawn are useful. Among them, the value of the 5 soldiers far exceeds that of the others. Water, synthetic, quenching, is a heat treatment method for workpieces that hardens the surface or may force the object to harden, but it is unknown whether it can harden the body. Finger fist. Grass, combined with chui, describes lush vegetation, but Lao Du once said that some characters can be selected by oneself when generated, and the verb chui means gathering. If it can be used for people, forced clustering may be considered a hard control. And finally, the most crucial thing. Adding stones. To break, to cause to break. And the broken objects naturally include people. The first 2 uses are somewhat forced, after all, they are not so common, but there is definitely no problem with broken characters. However, Yu Liang is more inclined to believe that both quenching and extraction can be used, as evidenced by the previous performances of Qi, Zhu, and Liao, which indicate that the core of this text game is actually very hardcore. Previously, Old Du also said that if it is a compound noun, it only needs to match its meaning implicitly. However, if it is a verb symbol that requires active use, random combination will not succeed. Only by understanding the meaning of the word can it be successfully synthesized and effective. To some extent, this writing rule is also the only comfort for Yu Liang to travel here, at least he is quite familiar with Chinese characters. Old Du doesn't look strong, but he can carry a huge travel bag for so long, and coupled with his ability to survive to this day, he has even experienced a strange world. In terms of strength, he is definitely far superior to him and Xiao Zhai's. Water, grass, and stones are all very common things in this zoo that can be easily found. The word symbols derived from the character, zoo, are very useful regardless of which one they are. The only regret that Yu Liang felt was that there were only 5 black zoo in a chess set, which could not be used for extravagance. Yu Liang glanced at the roadside and decided to put some stones and grass in his inventory when Old Du and Xiao Zhai's were not paying attention. Previously, I saw that Old Du's character synthesis speed was not slow, so he didn't need to make these verb characters in advance. As long as he prepared the materials, he could synthesize the ones he needed on the spot. Compared to that, the other 5 red soldier chess pieces on Yu reading www.yuukangshu.net are of little use, at least he still can't think of any useful composite characters. However, can Lao Du withstand broken characters? Suddenly, a thought flashed through Yu Liang's mind. He couldn't help but look at the back of Old Du, but without much thought, he completely gave up on this idea. Leaving aside the necessity of such matters, he speculated that Old Du might not be afraid of character attacks. The broken character is similar to the broken character, and broken is not difficult to obtain. Old Do can have it, and others can also have it, but just now it was obvious that Old Do was respected on the bus. Just like firearms, if everyone had a gun, they wouldn't be afraid of each other, so Yu Liang felt that Old Do might have some countermeasures. For now, it is still important to follow Lao Du closely to understand the overview of the zoo and secretly collect some characters for future use. Yu Liang's fingertips rubbed against the scratches on the strokes of the character, zoo. I don't know if the broken character can directly crush crocodiles, but from a strange perspective, it doesn't mention that monkeys can have the means to kill crocodiles. The underlying logic of this strange story is simple, and he speculates that all attacks by monkeys should be ineffective against crocodiles. If only I could try attacking the crocodile with something like a spear, I would have some confidence in my heart. Otherwise, when I face the crocodile alone, would realize that the broken character is useless, and I would probably despair, right? Let's go to the turtle park first. Old Do finally made up his mind and turned around to glance at the two people behind him. Today is the day for new tourists to enter the park. We won't be staying in the tourist center anymore. It's hard to say what's going on during the day, but the tourist center at night must be a dangerous area for various strange rumors to erupt. Chapter 7. The Guillotine Turtle and Electricity. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Strange talk explodes. Xiao Zhai's repeated Old Do's words, wondering, do we want to live outside? You are carrying strange rumors about this zoo right now, Old Do said. Besides, as long as you stay in this zoo, strange things will come to you, most of which are beneficial and will impose many restrictions on you. It may also directly kill you, making you a rumor circulating in the mouths of tourists. Strange stories are like viruses, parasitizing on people to have an effect. There are many people in the tourist center tonight, and it is during the outbreak of strange stories that people to people. It can be very scary. Old Do said a long paragraph, seemingly trying to explain the matter clearly. He added, stay away from those employees who seem strange. If you have any questions, you can ask them. If you have difficulties, you can come to them, but don't chat or help them with things. He turned around and glanced at Yu Liang and Xiao Zhai's with a calm tone, only narrating, if I bring those things over, I will not hesitate to leave you. I know I won't do anything extra, Xiao Zhai's nodded in agreement. He didn't have a deep understanding of this yet, but seeing how seriously Du said it was also firmly remembered in his heart. If the employee keeps pestering, just find a chance to kill him, throw the body into the trash can, no one will trouble you, Old Du continued, such employees are not protected by the park. Kill. Fall. Xiao Zhai's was stunned. He was not mentally prepared for this yet. He swallowed his saliva and asked from another perspective, are they people or something else? It's not human, there's no need for psychological burden. Old Du seemed to understand what Xiao Zhai's was thinking, and he added, the creatures derived from these strange rumors must act within limits, which is an insurmountable rule. Yu Liang silently sighed in his heart. It would have been better if he had known about this kind of thing earlier. Unfortunately, he had already been caught up in a strange rumor, which was still the kind of profit reduction rumor that Old Du talked about. Not being alone also deprives many opportunities for solo exploration and privacy, not right. A sudden flash of inspiration flashed in Yu Liang's mind, as if he had thought of something, and his eyes lit up slightly. Previously, I was able to escape because of the game between two crocodiles, which also indicates that the limitations of this strange theory are not conceptual. The danger of being alone still comes from the crocodile itself, and crocodiles have a certain level of rationality. They will also make a choice whether to eat monkeys or not. And the crocodile he just saw clearly didn't really let himself go. He might have been secretly tracking and waiting for another crocodile to appear. Solitude is not an absolute danger. If a crocodile peeking in the dark feels that another crocodile is also waiting in the dark, it will naturally restrain its animalistic nature. Let's go, we don't have a car. Turtle Island is far from here. Old Do walked towards the center of the zoo. I hope to get there in 90 minutes. Yu Yang glanced at the time displayed on the flowing LED board in front of the Grassland Animal Museum. It was now 12 o'clock in the park, which was lunchtime. However, he had just had dinner before arriving at the zoo, so he did not feel any hunger. He recalled the map just now, and based on his estimated scale, he could roughly calculate how far Turtle Island was from here. About 8 kilometers, it's not difficult to walk there in 90 minutes. However, when he remembered this, Yu Yang looked up at Old Do carrying a huge travel bag. With such a heavy load, Old Do's physical fitness was indeed terrifying, not to mention that he needed to be prepared for battle at any time. That is to say, this kind of fast walking under heavy load is just a sprinkling of water for him. Xiao Zhuai said quickly, "Is there no park bus in this zoo?" "The driver's car just now. There is a bus that runs every 15 minutes. Old Do didn't look back, but there is a chance of encountering related bus rumors. Today, new tourists enter the park, and the probability of rumors about buses is even higher than usual. As for the buses of the brothers Wu and Wu, they were exchanged for their lives, and all the extra resources in this zoo have to be exchanged for their lives." "Okay." Upon hearing this explanation, Xiao Zhuai's only nodded, but then his stomach growled twice, causing Old Do and Yu Liang to look at him at the same time. Lao Du's response was simple, "There is a convenience store ahead, you can go in and get some food." With a hint of contemplation in his gaze towards Xiao Zhuai's, Yu Liang asked, "Xiao Zhuai's, when did you come to this zoo?" "Around 2 or 3 in the afternoon, what's going on?" Xiao Zhuai's looked at Yu Liang puzzled. Yu Liang nodded clearly without saying much. However, Old Do beside him seemed to understand Yu Liang's thoughts. He glanced and said, "Yes, all tourists have traveled here from different times, but the time period is limited to this century." Xiao Zhuai's was momentarily stunned. He looked at Yu Liang and then at Lao Du, but he didn't understand what the two were communicating about. "So what should we do when we go to Turtle Island?" Yu Liang saw that Old Do had already understood his own thoughts, and without any doubts at the moment, Yu read a book www.yuyukeangshu.net and asked directly. "Collect some resources." Old Do didn't hide it either. "If we live outdoors, we need enough lighting. There is something as scary as a strange tale in the darkness. So there are many power sources on Turtle Island." Yu Liang noted this. Lao Du shook his head and took out a cloth bag from his travel bag behind him. With a few taps, he untied it and inside was a small turtle, about the size of a pet turtle. "This is a turtle," he continued, then took off the flashlight hanging from his waist, opened the back slot of the flashlight, and dumped something inside that was pitch black and emitting a slight fishy odor onto the ground. Yu Liang looked curiously at the flashlight. When he first saw it on the bus, he was a bit puzzled as to why a flashlight would be stained with red blood, and the lampshade would be completely soaked in dark red. Now, upon closer inspection, he found that the blood was oozing out from inside out, not from a blunt weapon attack. As for what was poured out of the flashlight, he couldn't recognize it and only felt a bit nauseous. "Take it." Old Do put the flashlight in Xiao Zhuai's hand, and the free hand held a small knife. With just a brush, half of the turtle's head was cut off. Then he quickly stuffed the turtle body into the back slot of the flashlight, screwed on the back cover, and said, "This is a rule I accidentally discovered. Some individual characters can be changed through physical reduction. Turtle. Cutting off half of the head will turn into electricity. Putting a suitable sized turtle body into an electrical appliance can provide 1 unit of electricity. Turtle. Electricity. Xiao. Month. Yu Liang's mind seemed to be pierced by lightning, and he instantly thought of a terrible thing. If Xiao Zhuai's head is chopped off, is it just a month? Chapter 8. Little Rabbit's Good Behavior. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Old Do, can the characters obtained through reduction still be used for synthesis? Yu Liang seemed to ask unintentionally. Old Do was taken aback for a moment, then shook his head. He placed the decapitated turtle in front of Yu Liang. Just take a look and you'll know. Guillotine turtle name. Turtle texture. None note. Due to certain physical changes, it can serve as a power source. I understand. Yu Liang nodded to show understanding. He glanced at Xiao Zhuai's and breathed a sigh of relief. Xiao Zhuai's head was saved. The name and texture of the turtle have not changed, and they have not really become electricity, still not in line with the rules of text synthesis. Turtle. Electricity. Even though he had already accepted this, there was still a slight strangeness in Yu Liang's heart. He did not expect that the difference between turtle and electricity was only half of his head. If the previous word formation rules can still reveal some of the cultural connotations of Chinese characters, then the rules for individual characters may have a bit of a brain teaser. But when he thought about it, many of the individual characters were pictograms, which were changed through the physical cutting of real things. It seems that it has indeed deepened my impression of the concept of pictographs. Old Do's gaze fell on Yu Liang and his companions. Don't tell anyone about this, and I'm not someone who enjoys sharing, but I need you. Help me think about what other words this rule can apply to. I see, thank you for sharing. Yu Liang immediately responded, if I think of a good usage, I will tell you. Old Do nodded and took a step forward. Without hesitation, Yu Liang agreed to Old Do. He was well aware that what Old Do had just said was both a sharing and a trial. If he could not come up with similar clever uses based on this rule, Old Do would not tell him any other hidden rules. However, as soon as Old Do came up to share such a precious method, Yu Liang still had some unexpected surprises. Electricity, power supply, and depending on the usage of Lao Du, there is no need to consider too much when placing the severed turtle. As long as the size is suitable and can be connected to the battery compartment or power compartment, it is sufficient. Most horror games have main quests that include finding power, and after that, you only need to put a few turtles in the item list to avoid any worries. No matter how you look at it, this idea is very genius, but I don't know if it was thought of by Lao Du himself. The zoo covers a large area. Although it is invisible from the perspective, it can be clearly perceived that these scenes are very repetitive. Almost everywhere is lawn, small lake, green trees and stone road, which also makes Yu Liang's memory confused. He wanted to record some obvious landmarks to identify directions, but found that the scenes here are very similar, just like some games under the banner of opening the world with a super map. After entering, he found that they are identical maps. Is that a rabbit? At this moment, Xiao Zhuai saw a white patch of grass on the other side of the lake from afar. Upon closer inspection, he murmured, as if moved by the rabbit's playful behavior. He couldn't help but chuckle softly. Fat and chubby are quite cute, but no one cares about it. Upon hearing this, Old Do quickly turned his head in that direction. He also recognized the animal and muttered to himself, is it a rabbit? Judging from its size, it should be a meat rabbit, but I haven't seen a rabbit recently, so don't worry about it. Xiao Zhuai naturally understood what Lao Du meant. The tourist notice stated that discovering animals that had recently been seen in the exhibition area on the road was an ominous sign. They had just passed through the main road of the grassland animal area and had not seen rabbits. Rabbit. Rabbit. Yu Liang looked across from the lake, his pupils contracting suddenly and then naturally expanding. He didn't express his doubts on his face, just looked at the other side of the lake with a serious expression. There is indeed a white thing on the other side of the lake, but it is not a rabbit, but a person. That was a middle-aged man with a big belly, wearing only a pair of shorts, and his exposed skin was covered in fluff. He crouched on the ground, slowly moving and occasionally bouncing twice. His round and soft belly also shook, jumping and bouncing like a little rabbit. His hands were placed on both sides of his head, showing his scissor hands, as if simulating a rabbit's long ears. If such extreme juvenile movements appear on a child, Yuliang would naturally find them cute, but when they appear on a middle-aged person with a fat belly, his inner feelings are somewhat complex. A bit nauseous, with a bit of instinctive fear, probably due to the terrifying valley effect. Little rabbit, be good, open the door, open it quickly, I want to come in. Across the lake, the middle-aged rabbit's somewhat hoarse and pretended to be gentle singing voice came, making Yuliang unable to help but get goosebumps all over. He looked at old Du and Xiao Zhai's, wanting to confirm if they could hear the singing here, but Xiao Zhai suddenly said, so that's how rabbits bark, hissing. I haven't heard much before. Old Du just nodded and didn't respond much, but it's not difficult to infer from the expression on his face that he only heard the rabbit's extremely low-pitched hoarse voice. The middle-aged rabbit on the other side seemed to have noticed something and turned to look at Yuliang and the three of them in the distance. At this moment, Yuliang also understood why the middle-aged rabbit had to put its hand on its head to simulate its ears. It has a wolf face. The nose is pointed and long, the mouth is wide, and the face is covered with thick and short black hard mane. A pair of eyes are full of cunning and cunning that is different from the clumsy physique. As sung in the nursery rhyme, this wolf is disguised as a big rabbit, searching for other little rabbits. Shoo! The wolf-faced rabbit extended its bright red tongue and licked the tip of its nose, grinning and revealing 2 rows of crooked teeth protruding from its mouth. Then it took one hand off its head and placed its index finger in front of its mouth, making a gesture of silence. It's reminding me not to reveal secrets. This monster is very dangerous. It knows I can see. An alarm bell rang in Yuliang's heart. Why can only I see the true face of this rabbit and wolf? Because am I a monkey? Thinking of this, Yuliang quickly touched his hand and body. Fortunately, he neither grew monkey hair nor a tail. Let's go a little further and we'll be at the convenience store. We need to make some basic supplies at the convenience store, said old Du as he signaled the two of them to leave. He was very strict with time control and was accustomed to following the plan in an orderly manner. Xiao Zhai's followed closely behind old Du, while Yuliang finished a distance. He turned to look at the lawn across the lake, and the rabbit and wolf had already bypassed a patch of bushes and disappeared from his sight. Looking up at the signpost, Mingxin Lake, he took note of the name of the lake and quickly followed old Du's footsteps. There are monsters among the staff of the zoo, and the escaping animals have monsters, but normal tourists cannot see them. Monsters know that abnormal tourists can see them, and currently, their intelligence is not low, and they can restrain their desires and maintain a certain level of rationality. The only good news is that these monsters have their own rules, and they only act under unique bizarre rules, not without taboos. Only in this way can tourists gain a glimmer of hope. Yuliang silently thought as he reached out to pull down the weeds on the roadside, picked up stones from the soil, and along the way, picked up some soil blocks to store in the inventory. Although it is not yet certain what character the earth block and one's own chess pieces can be combined into, as a common radical, earth, can always be stored without any problem. Dams, slopes, collapses, titubian seems to be very suitable for building terrain. If it's a dam, it's easy to find. The zoo should be able to find shellfish, there is no need to say much about the slope, just a piece of skin is enough. As for the character, you can go to the office to look for it. Perhaps you can find the chi of goji berries, extract the wood texture and combine it with other things, and the remaining things will get ji, which can then be combined with earth. In just an instant, many thoughts flashed through Yuliang's mind, and these objects were also in his mind. He may not have gone specifically to search for them, but if he happens to find them, he will naturally put them away for emergencies. Thinking of this, Yuliang's understanding of character rules became clearer in his mind. This method of secondary combination and even multiple combinations to form characters is the correct example of using character composition rules. Characters like candle and broken, which are composed of two concrete things, are not many. Most radical characters are composed of radicals and an abstract thing, and these abstract things can only be found from other characters. For example, if you want to form a collapse, you need to first find the abstract Chinese character, oneself, from the wolfberry, and after secondary combination, you can obtain the desired character. This rule is quite interesting. As long as you obtain enough simple things, you can transform into a wizard and use characters to create and destroy this world. So it's not too bad, at least I'm still very familiar with Chinese characters, and I haven't encountered any danger along the way except for that crocodile. After a walk of about 15 minutes, Yu Liang and his wife followed old Du to a convenience store. There was only one female clerk wearing a red uniform in the store. When she saw old Du and his three companions walking in, she simply said, "Welcome," and then went on with her own business. Don't think too much, don't ask too much. Anything in need can be taken, anything placed on the food shelf can be eaten, and vice versa cannot be eaten. Old Du whispered to Yu Liang, "The fees in the zoo need to be paid with tourist points, and each tourist has a certain amount every week to meet basic food and accommodation needs. If more tourist points are needed, they can be earned by doing volunteer work in the zoo and other means." After speaking, he clicked and said, "You have your points in the bottom right corner of your homepage. After you finish the product, you can pay by brushing your face. You can buy things within your means, and I won't care about your food and accommodation." Understood, Xiao Zhai's agreed and walked towards the shelf inside. Yu Liang, on the other hand, had a sudden thought and opened the main page that only he could see. There was not much content on it, only a few items. Yu Liang tourist points. 1000 occupation. Writer, not alienated, strange talk column number. Zoo monkeys who cannot be alone a writer. Yu Liang felt a little strange in his heart. Now he thought he could only be considered a writer, but he didn't expect that the strange talk world would give him the title of professional writer. This surprised him a bit. However, the writer's subsequent undifferentiated made him wonder again, the meaning of this undifferentiated, has it not been assimilated by the strange talk here or something else? He lifted his head to search for the figure of Lao Du, and Xiao Zhai's were whispering something not far away, about 2 or 3 shelves away from him. The high shelves covered their bodies, only revealing half of their heads. And right next to Yu Liang, the salesperson just passed by the shelf with a mop. When she passed by Yu Liang, she paused and pasted a sticky note on the product in front of him. "Don't tell them you can see," the note wrote. Yu Liang suddenly turned his head to look at the clerk, who was wearing a mask that could cover most of his face. However, from the exposed eyes, it could be seen that the face behind the mask was not the doll like that of the previous crocodile employee. The exhaustion in those eyes almost solidified into a solid entity. The eyes of the two met for a moment, but they didn't open at the same time. Then, the clerk quickened his pace and walked towards the interior of the convenience store with a mop. Volunteer tourists. Yu Liang wanted to say something, but the salesperson clearly didn't want to talk. She walked into the bathroom inside the convenience store and didn't give Yu Liang a chance to inquire. The whole process only lasted for a few seconds, and neither old Du nor the other two nearby noticed the commotion. "Wait, she." His gaze fell straight on the back of the salesperson, and Yu Liang stood still in a daze because he saw a short snow-white tail behind the female salesperson, resembling a fluffy ball. He then looked up at her head, with 2 long ears hanging down like ponytails on either side of her head. Not a volunteer, it is rabbit. Is this employee a rabbit? Chapter 9. The Monkey Knows Not, 4K. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Rabbit-like crocodiles, carrying strange stories on their bodies. But I didn't trigger it myself, was it because the conditions were not met or something else? Forget it, this is not the point is what she said. Don't tell them you can see. Who are they? Are you referring to Lao Du and Xiao Zhai's? Visible should mean being able to see the true faces of those animals on the road. Why do the staff here remind themselves so? Yu Liang frowned slightly as he looked in the direction where the clerk had disappeared. He could understand why the clerk left a small note and hurriedly left. In this zoo, normal employees do not talk to tourists. If it is an extreme tourist like Lao Du, it is also possible to directly kill them. However, in the face of such danger, the shop assistant still chooses to remind themselves. Is it malicious or kind-hearted? Due to the previous crocodile employee, Yu Liang was very vigilant about everything in this zoo, but he tended to think that the shop assistant was well-intentioned because it was difficult for him to associate any traps from this sentence. However, the source of this kindness puzzled Yu Liang and he pondered over it. Apart from his monkey identity, he couldn't find any reason to explain it. Yu Liang, are you okay? We should go now. Xiao Zhai's walked over to him, waving the instant noodles on his hand. I asked old Du, and he said he would stay on Turtle Island for one night and bring enough food for today. Yu Liang nodded and looked at the shelf in front of him. There were some biscuits on it, and the prices were almost the same as reality. The tourist points and cash purchasing power here were roughly the same. He walked to the other shelves. Wait, let me see what else is here. The variety of products in this convenience store is very limited. Yu Liang originally wanted to look for things like goji berries that could be used to combine characters, but it was obvious that he had overthinked it. The food shelves here are almost only the ones commonly seen in scenic area stores, such as instant noodles, water, and small biscuits with indistinct brands, while the shelves of daily necessities are filled with items such as toilet paper and sanitary napkins. However, what surprised him was that no matter how much he searched on non-food shelves, he couldn't find anything resembling food. However, he also knew that old Du wouldn't shoot aimlessly. If he saw something haphazardly placed on shelves in the future, he would avoid it no matter what. Yu Liang no longer chose, just like Xiao Zhai's, he took 2 buckets of instant noodles, and when his gaze returned to the daily necessities shelf, he had a new goal. Pen. He looked in the direction of old Du, and old Du and Xiao Zhai's had already walked to the front of the facial recognition payment machine near the business desk. So he took 2 ballpoint pens and wrote a line of words on the sticky note just now. There is a wolf disguised as a rabbit near Mingxin Lake, be careful. He took a few more packets of paper and followed the old Du couple. He had already calculated the prices of these things in his mind, totaling 25 tourist points. In front of the self-service facial brush machine, Xiao Zhai's put together the things of the 3 of them. He smiled shyly at old Du and Yu Liang, clasping his hands together as a plea, thank you all for the way. Let me pay for this small amount of money, and it's okay in the future. My tourist points are not important. No need, I'm just for myself. Old Du shook his head to stop him, but when he saw Xiao Zhai's quickly settle the account, he didn't say much. At the same time, he saw what Yu Liang had bought and was a bit surprised. Pen. Paper. Yu Liang nodded, not intending to conceal it. He said straightforwardly, there are many words for bamboo texture, but bamboo may not be found in this zoo. Bring a pen first, and if needed, paper will be the same. Well, that's okay. Lao Du nodded, there is indeed no bamboo in this zoo, and the animals all eat the same feed. What does that mean? Xiao Zhai's was stunned. He looked at Yu Liang and then at Lao Du, feeling a bit puzzled. As expected. Yu Liang thought to himself, his words just now revealed the usage of characters obtained through secondary conversion, and old Du did not point out anything wrong, indicating that his conjecture was correct. He did not hide this rule from Xiao Zhai's, as a way of giving back to Xiao Zhai's recent actions. Most Chinese characters are phonetic characters, and the sound parts are mostly abstract characters, making it difficult to find entities. However, the sound parts can be obtained by extracting the texture, and then combined with the corresponding texture to obtain the desired character. Compared to what Lao Du said about direct combination, the second conversion can obtain many more characters. Yu Liang tried to make this point as complete and clear as possible, and it was precisely from the characteristics of phonetic characters that he inferred that secondary conversion should be the more common usage. It makes sense. Xiao Zhi's was stunned for a moment, then nodded his head like a awakened person. Although he had already graduated, his Chinese foundation was not completely lost. These words also made old Du appear somewhat thoughtful. He was originally a rough person, relying on his brute strength and years of wild nature to survive in this strange world. However, this does not mean that he does not care about these character rules. On the contrary, he has been silently learning and studying these Chinese characters. Yu Liang's words also gave him some enlightenment. So I'll buy some more things. Xiao Zhi's turned to look at the shelves inside. He wasn't stupid either, and naturally knew that a suitable character was far more valuable than tourist points. No need. Yu Liang grabbed him in an instant. There aren't many things I can use here, I've picked enough of them. Xiao Zhi's nodded, unaware that Yu Liang was worried that he would see the note left by him. He obediently gave up, and in less than half a day, he had already recognized his role in this team. He just needed to listen. However, some special characters do not apply this rule, old Du suddenly spoke up. For example, Qi seems to have to be synthesized with moon, and the extracted texture moon is not useful. Yu Liang lowered his eyes and began to ponder, creating negative associations in his heart. Lao Du's affirmation is probably due to his attempts. The texture of the moon is mostly related to the body structure, and the story behind it is obvious. The weather has changed. Old Du looked up and said with a serious expression. The just sunny sky suddenly became gloomy. The weather has changed. Let's leave early and arrive early. Turtle Island is safer than here. Yu Liang could also feel the oppressive atmosphere in the air, as if something was about to come. He had intended to take advantage of this rush to ask old Du about the alienation in his profession, but suddenly there was no interest in asking. He could only feel the unease deep within himself. Hurry up, leave here quickly, go to Turtle Island quickly, go to the safe place that old Du said. Now he only has this thought in his heart. Ahead is the bird garden in the bird park. Quickly pass along the main street and carefully look at the road. If I get lost, I won't come looking for you. Old Dufan instructed, walking quickly ahead. When passing by the parrot and octopus areas, don't pay attention to them. When passing by the peacock area, don't look up at their tails. Yu Liang noticed that old Du had once again placed his hand on the handle of the mountain knife, as he had never been so vigilant when passing through the grassland animal area before. Birds are birds more dangerous than those pythons and lions in grassland areas. This solemn atmosphere also affected him. He couldn't help but take a pawn and a stone into his pocket, and his fingers kept rubbing the smooth back of the pawn. This mechanical behavior can relieve his tension. Old Du, the three of them were about to enter the bird park when a voice from the slanted side called out to them. Yu Liang looked towards the speaker, who was a small group of four dressed in simple sportswear. Each person carried a sports backpack and held weapons such as iron bars or long knives. Old Du just nodded slightly, his reaction was very cold. The man leading the way tilted his head and looked behind old Du, then exclaimed with a familiar tongue, I didn't expect old Du to bring new people with him. Mix up some task rewards. Old Du's words were concise and clear, indicating that this was his consistent style of behavior. This cold response did not surprise the man in charge. My name is Wu Yong, what do you two call each other? The man led by him walked up and, 5 steps away from old Du, put his hands on his chest to show that he was not threatening. Xiao Zhi's. Yu Liang. Wu Yong's gaze lingered slightly on the two of them. He couldn't see anything special about them, but being selected by Old Do must have some hidden special ability. Although he had not seen Old Do a few times, he had long heard of his independence and strength, and now two new people had appeared beside Old Do, which made him a little curious. "Where are you going, Old Do? The tourist center." Wu Yong smiled and said, "If you're on the way, let's go together." Old Do's gaze fell on the three people behind Wu Yong, 2 men and 1 woman, both of whom were alert and capable, clearly enduring the invasion of strange talk. "Okay," Old Do replied. Yu Yang looked at Old Do with some surprise. He thought Old Do would refuse. Old Do had been walking alone before, so he probably didn't like to be with too many people. He looked up at the sky, and at this moment, the sky above the bird garden was shrouded in dark clouds, as if a thick black cotton quilt was pressing down, making the world dim. Combining with Lao Du's previous actions, the sky at this time is clearly an ominous omen. To be honest, Yu Yang, who is well versed in horror film routines, really wants to leave them and run away. He can almost guarantee that something strange will happen next. However, he is a monkey who cannot be alone, and Old Do has also made the decision to cross the bird park, which probably indicates that crossing the park is dangerous, but only within a controllable range. The main body of the bird garden is a large dense forest, with various bird viewing areas randomly distributed among them, with shaded paths interspersed between them. Interestingly, the entire bird garden does not have a map, and for first-time visitors, what kind of birds they can see is very random. Even experienced tourists can easily get lost when crossing the bird garden. After all, the entire park is filled with tall and dense trees that cannot be called yuliang, and when looking up, there is a feeling of not seeing the sun. Ga. Ga. In the dimness deep in the forest, the hoarse crow's cry came, along with the thick and indistinguishable fog. "Follow me." Old Do furrowed his brow slightly and turned his head back to say, "Wu Yong, please pay attention to the rear." "Okay." Wu Yong did not refuse. As the second position of this temporarily formed team, he has an obligation to ensure the safety of the team after the shutdown. Small birds are often kept in captivity or hung on tree tops or placed on the roadside, like decorations on this shady path for tourists to admire. The signs provide a brief introduction to the bird species, while the self-service vending machine on one side only sells a red bird feed that can be used to feed animals. Do all birds eat the same feed? Although he had seen this notice on the tourist notice earlier, Yu Yang was still somewhat surprised when he truly saw it. Different birds have different diets, it's hard to imagine them eating the same kind of feed, but this zoo is already abnormal, and it's normal for these animals to be abnormal. The 7 of them hurried in their footsteps, and no one wanted to stay in this place for a long time. The birds in the cage also showed a lack of interest in them. Most of the birds hung their heads and blinked rhythmically, lacking any alertness or sharpness. Only a few looked up at the few people, but still showed no extra performance. Octopus, a noisy bird with a black body and a crown feather cluster on the forehead, is a small bird that can learn bird singing in human speech. Its meat can be used as medicine and has the effects of lowering qi and stopping bleeding. The content on the signboard is reminding the fast-walking tourists that they have arrived at the viewing area of the 8 brothers. Don't pay attention to them. Old Do turned around and reminded, no matter what they say, don't believe it, don't stay, and don't feed. Did you hear what Old Do said? It's very important, Wu Yong said to his 3 team members at the end. The other 2 did not respond, seeming to think that this kind of question could be understood without further explanation. Only the woman said, "Understand," and her voice remained calm. Yu Yang looked at the woman, wearing sportswear and short hair, exuding a sense of competence. She always held a dagger in her hand and kept a distance of about 1 meter from the people around her. Suddenly, a octopus in the birdcage said, "Look, there's a monkey in the crowd." "Strange thing," the other octopus replied, "Hey, monkey brother, how about buying me a bag of feed?" Yu Liang ignored them and didn't even glance at these two birds. The octopus is communicating in human language, and other people can also hear these contents. If he responds, it will definitely arouse suspicion. If he does not respond, others will only think that these two octopuses are talking nonsense. And he's not a monkey, he just fell for the monkey's strange talk. Okay, I don't seem to understand human language, the octopus pouted and fluttered its wings. It asked the nearby octopus, can you speak monkey language? Ask, I'm craving it. Gigi. The other octopus cleverly imitated the monkey's cry, Gigi Gigi. Yu Liang looked up at them and felt helpless. Although he didn't want to admit it, he did understand. Damn it. This octopus repeated what he had just said in monkey language, and he could be certain that no one else understood what the octopus was saying. Let me tell you, he really doesn't understand human language. The first octopus trembled its wings, as if learning to shrug. Chapter 10. Blackbird. You are listening at novelfull.audio. It's still pretending to be human. Still pretending to be human. The monkey's tail is exposed. It's exposed. The octopus laughed heartily and was overjoyed, while the other octopus couldn't remember the grammar rules of monkey language, so he just followed suit. Never mind, he seems to have something else to do, so we won't disturb him, said the octopus, shouting to Yu Liang, Brother Monkey, goodbye Brother Monkey. We are all experts, no matter what the problem is, we can inquire about a bag of feed. That's right, we can help each other regardless of our background. As long as you are expelled, we will be good brothers. The voice of the octopus was mixed with laughter, and Yu Liang still hung his head. He followed the team quickly past the viewing area of the octopus. As old Du warned, all the tourists in the team did not pay attention to what these noisy octopus had said. As he left the beige district, he couldn't help but touch his back and breathed a sigh of relief after confirming that he hadn't grown a monkey tail. To be honest, he was really worried that he would be assimilated into a real monkey by this zoo, because all the animals he met along the way showed him some kindness, as if they were of the same kind. This seems like a good thing. He doesn't seem to be the preferred target for monster talk creatures, but it just seems like a good thing. On the one hand, he will receive preferential treatment, and on the other hand, it will definitely make him double his reward. Achoo! Xiao Zhai's sneezed coldly, holding his arm and trembling all over. He looked at the crowd and felt a bit embarrassed. Why did it suddenly get much colder? Yu Liang also tightened his clothes. At this moment, he was wearing autumn clothes, and the coldness in the mist invaded like a bony gangrene, causing him to shiver uncontrollably. At this moment, he was in the center of the team, with Xiao Zhais and a robust man named LV Xing in front. Most of the other 6 people present also cowered like him, feeling puzzled by the sudden drop in temperature. This is Flamingo. He noticed that there were fewer trees ahead, giving him a sudden sense of openness. A Salt Lake waterfront viewing area appeared in front of him, where there was a large group of black-billed, red-feathered, and long-legged birds gathered together, resembling a rolling red flower sea, extremely beautiful. The sign also reads an introduction to the flamingo. Flamingo, a large bird with vermilion feathers, is a passionate and fiery bird. However, unlike its name, it is extremely afraid of the cold and needs to be transferred to indoor viewing areas when the temperature drops. Passionate like fire. Fear of cold. Yu Liang looked at the flocks of flamingos in the viewing area, strolling or combing their feathers by the lakeside. One of the flamingos noticed his gaze and opened its 2 white and red gradually changing wings, flapping twice as if showcasing its charm and declaring its position on this waterfront. He noticed that although the flamingo had spread its wings to the best of its ability, the wings still curved slightly downwards at a strange angle, as if they were born deformed. Perhaps the park cut off the main veins on the wings to prevent these flying birds from escaping the viewing area. This is a common method of imprisoning large birds in zoos. After observing for a while, he also noticed that the position of these flamingos was very close, but from their posture, they did not feel any discomfort, but rather felt contented. And he felt that the current temperature had dropped sharply to below 10 degrees Celsius. It's so cold, so cold, so cold, so cold. So cold, so cold. A faint mosquito-like sound came from the air, and the Blackbird, which had been all over, floated down like fallen leaves. Its left wing seemed to have been injured, so its flying posture was somewhat strange. It quickly passed by Yuliang and rushed towards Old Du in front of the team without any hesitation, but suddenly its wings tilted and it couldn't control its shape, piercing straight behind LV Xing in front of Yuliang. It stayed behind LV Xing, its pitch-black beak flashing with light, wildly pecking at LV Xing's back, quickly breaking a big hole. It buried its entire head in the flesh and bones of LV Xing's back, and blood gushed out, flushing everything around it. Next came the body, seemingly disgusted by the small opening on its back. One of the Blackbird's claws tightly hooked on the flesh and blood, and the bird's head and other sharp claw were used together, constantly swinging and kicking, quickly expanding the wound and revealing the white spine. The Blackbird finally felt satisfied and crawled into LV Xing's body, bathed in scorching red blood from above. It squinted its eyes comfortably and its voice was much more powerful. It's warm, so warm. All of this happened in front of Yuliang. He stopped and saw flesh and blood blur before him, with a strong smell of blood piercing through his nostrils like a cone. He stared blankly at LV Xing, not because the scene in front of him was terrifying, but because he was scrolling through a list of strange stories on his own page. Yu reading www.yuukangshu.net. Zoo monkeys who cannot be alone. Other than that, there are no new strange rumors added. That is to say, did only LV Xing in front get hit? What's wrong? Xiao Zhai's poked Yuliang's arm. LV Xing also turned around, his lips visibly turning white due to rapid blood loss. He noticed Yuliang's gaze and wondered, what's wrong? Is there something behind me? His back had a blood hole the size of a human head, and blood trickled out onto the ground, stretching out a line of blood in the forest, but no one saw it all. Including LV Xing himself, he was like a robot, painless and tireless, following the team of Wu Xing in the dense forest. He became weak at a visible speed, but he didn't feel anything, as if he was still a normal person, as if nothing had happened. Only Yuliang felt a profound strangeness, as if only he could see the bloody truth, or perhaps he had been abandoned by the world, only he was crazy, only he saw illusions. No, no. Everyone in this team felt the cold, which indicates that our perception of heat and cold is the same, while the flamingo, which should have been afraid of the cold, still moves freely by the lakeside, and it seems that only we are affected. Only I can see because I am a monkey, but I still feel cold because I am still human. I'm not crazy yet, I'm not crazy yet. In his mind, this sentence became more and more clear, and he immediately realized it, like waking up from a nightmare during a nap in the afternoon, with cold sweat streaming down his back. Something is modifying my cognition, and every aspect of my identification with the identity of a monkey is magnified tenfold. It wants me to become a monkey.